Okay, test. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The guest lecture is about to begin. Okay. Yes, thank you very much for preparing yourself to join the guest lecture. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. Yeah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respectable, the Vice Dean Academic and Student Affairs of Fakultas Psikologi Universitas Erlangga, Dr. Nur Aini Fardana Nawangsari, MSI Psikolog, the Honorable Speaker, Dr. Forbis Ahamed, the Honorable Lecturer of Fakultas Psikologi Universitas Erlangga, and the Honorable all participants of this guest lecture. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to this guest lecture held by Fakultas Psikologi Universitas Erlangga. This event invites lecturers or practitioners from national and international to give inspiration and information to everyone to share and learn together about a specific topic. So our topic for today is the psychology of perception in organizational context. Okay, before we start the session, let me introduce myself. Yeah, I will be your moderator today. My name is Reza. I'm a part of a team of lecturer in the Industrial and Organizational Psychology course. It's been an honor for me to be a moderator for this event. Okay, without any further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming our Vice Dean, Dr. Nur Aini Fardana Nawangsari, MSI Psikolog, to give opening remarks. Dr. Nur Aini, the virtual floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Behalf on Dean, I am Nur Aini Fardana as a Vice Dean in Academic and Student Affairs, Faculty of Psychology, Universitas Erlangga. We are happy to have Dr. Forbis Ahamed, and we would like thanks to Dr. Forbis Ahamed as a guest lecturer from Management and Science University, Malaysia. The theme of webinar is very interesting, which is the psychology of perception in organizational context. So I hope all of the participants can join and actively involve, also get new knowledge until the session is ended. Thank you for the attention. Okay, terima kasih Mbak Reza.
Okay, thank you, Bu Neni, for a very warm welcoming remark. So now we are moving on the one that we have been waiting for. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of participants here that just cannot wait to hear presentation from our speaker. We are pleased to inform you that among us here, we have Dr. Forbis Ahamed as a speaker for this session. Good morning, Dr. Forbis from Management and Science University, Malaysia.
Good morning.
Okay, it's an honorable for us to having you in this session, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, also to all, yes?
Yes.
So also to all participants here, thank you for taking time out of the day to attend this event. And before I hand the mic over to our speaker today, I have a few items to cover about the session. First, today's guest lecture is broadcast live in YouTube. It will be available on Fakultas Psikologi Universitas Erlangga YouTube page. Second, if you have any question during this presentation, just type your question into the chat box, or you can click the raise hand icon in the Q&A session. At the end of speaker session, me as moderator will invite you to activate the microphone so you can ask your question to the speaker directly. And last, we really appreciate if you could give us feedback at the end of the session to our event. I will share the presency form link through the chat box so you can fill it. Now, allow me to welcome the speaker, Dr. Forbis Ahamed, to deliver his presentation. Dr. Forbis, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Riza. First of all, you are the one going to be with me for 2 hours from now. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So good to see you all. And Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I take opportunity to thank to my university here, MSU, Management and Science University in Shah Alam, Malaysia. Probably some of you have been here. I'm not very sure, or you are invited for next time. Okay. So, and also thank you to Airlangga University, particularly psychology faculty, and a special thanks goes to Ibu Nur Aini and also Ibu Pramesti, who organized, who coordinated your faculty ambassador, and to my friend here, Riza, okay, and all the participants, professors, associate professors, students, particularly to industrial and organizational psychology students, my family members, exactly like 25 years ago, some of you were not born, definitely. And I was in Kajamada under the government G2G scholarship. And I was quite lucky enough to have all my lecturers there. So today's talk, I want to focus on the topic that you have seen there. But before that, I would like to attribute my talk to my humble professors, lecturers, while I was in UGM. Some of them were not here with us already. Like, if I name a few, Professor Asif Hadi Pranata, and Pak Kunchoro, Professor Sutrisno Hadi, and many of them, some of them are still active in UGM. When I visited my last visit before the pandemic, just before the pandemic. And so today's talk, I will not be going for very detailed on the theoretical and all this, right? And rather, it's going to be very surface, right? And very general, just to reflect. At least I believe that at the end of the talk, there will be some takeaway for all of us, particularly my family members, IO psychology, those who have, that's what I wanted to share with you. Last 25 years ago, I decided to have my specialization in psychology, right? So, however, it's not only for the IO psychology students, but it's very general, and any participants from any faculties are also welcome. And I believe some of them are from different background and different faculties and so on. When I see the number, it is quite satisfactory. 116 plus me, 117, right? So far. Okay. So to talk about the perception, here definitely I am not going to say about any right perception, wrong perception, right? I will not go into, I will not talk about this. Rather, how to develop a fair and objective perception. So the question is now, perception itself is very subjective, isn't it? So how we make it objective? That is going to be the essence of the talk today, right? Because it is very subjective. What I want to perceive is up to me. Right? How I perceive is also up to me. But when we are living with the organization, living with the, starting from very small family, societies, neighborhood, institution, organization, and so on, we are living with other people. So all of us, regardless of you are in a senior position or you just joined the organization, just ordinary employees, right? And up to the top level, management level, when I say about the academic institution like you and me, we have HOD, we have dean, deputy, and management team, and all this, right? And also just ordinary lecturers. And we have staffs, academic, non-academic, and all this. So, however, regardless of our position, how we are going to develop a fair perception, right? I will not touch, as I mentioned just now, I will not touch even a little bit of right or wrong, whether it is good or bad. I will not say these things, right? So how we are going to have, there are many examples, I tell you. In our institution, like education institution, we have appraisal like any other organization. We have evaluation on this stuff. Even in my capacity in our institution, the students are also evaluated, right? Particularly at the end of the semester, they have to fill up something before they qualify for the exam, right? Evaluating the lecturers, despite not knowing many things about the lecturers, right? They know a little bit of whether we come on time or we're always late and how we deliver, we force them to do something and so on, right? But there are many things. So we make sure this because we wanted to have a well-rounded evaluation. We call in organizational psychology or organizational behavior 360 degree. Everybody knows, right? How we make it 360 degree. Evaluating by the top, by the subordinates, by the co-workers, even the students, right? So why we do this? To make our evaluation fair. However, this is not exactly happening, right? We are aware of this, right? And because Dr. Ahmed sitting in the corner there, all right, and always keep quiet, but doing a fantastic job, all the academic and all the administrative perfectly, but never come to the dean and talk to the dean and post everything what you do and all this, very quiet. But when it comes to evaluation, Dr. Ahmed is not getting anything. Why? The decision maker has not fulfilled the requirement of developing a fair perception. Might be making a decision with very limited information, right? Or maybe just hearsay. Someone who frequently visit, prepare the coffee and tea and serving them all the time, they are getting this course, right? This is what happening. So that is why it's so important for us, regardless of our position, right? We can develop, we can have a very objective perception. Rather than that, to perceive objectively, we are given all the instruments that we require. Who gave to us all these things? By the Almighty, right? It's not a religious talk. It just, I'm not also someone from religious background, but we can introspect, right? If we have a good sense, then we can introspect. We are given everything. How we perceive, basically, as simple as we use all our sensory receptors, we call in psychology. In cognitive psychology or developmental psychology, we discuss about these things. Particularly, we are offering a subject, sensation and perception. We have a module we teach for the whole semester. I'm not sure in your syllabus you have included as an independent module or just belong to intro to psychology or somewhere. I'm not very sure because I have not gone through your syllabus. So, but here we really give attention to this, right? So, perception, if I could share my slide a little bit, if you can you allow me, Riza, to share my slide?
Okay, I will set you as co-host so you can share your screen, or maybe.
Now I can share already, right?
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. So, before I start talking about the perception, I just try to find out some wise people saying about the perception. It's not sometimes directly related, right? So it's like something like a mirror, right? What I see in the mirror is going to be reflecting directly. So we cannot be arrogant or aggressive to the mirror while you are showing this picture, because the mirror is very fair. How you look like, the mirror is exactly reflecting something like this. How we perceive other people, there is a spiritual relationship. How I perceive other people, that person may not know, right? But that person is also going to develop a perception reflecting my perception without communicating. Right? There is a spiritual elements there. Right? This is what exactly trying to say here. Similarly, I just found one statement also, just to share before I start with my talk. So we cannot change basically the world. Right? Definitely. Why my dean is perceiving me in that manner? I don't think so. I'm simply be able to change the perception, but at least I can change my perception. I can change my view, perception on object here. Object means that can be something or human being or some abstract things. These are the object that we call. So that is why it is suggested together here, we develop something positive always. Even that is why we call positive psychology and all this, right? I don't know whether you in Indonesia, you use mental hospital and all this. But here we try to change it to, because people have different perception on the wording, naming and all this, right? I believe you also change something like pusat kesehatan psikologi or something. Because here we say the same thing, psychological health center. Rather, we are talking about mental hospital. No, we change it to psychological health center. How beautiful, right? So just to change people's perception. So we can make things in a way that make positive, even in wording, in using concept, in communicating, right? And also we can learn and practice as our perception as fair as possible when we are in the organization, right? We have to try, right? So it's directly also related to our personality, right? Not everything we can change. But however, when we are with the people, we have to change certain things, right? And also, we should always try to be around, create circumstances or scenario around us to make that can make us happy and satisfied. That is going to help us in developing fair perception, and also be grateful, right? Particularly, I put the star there, grateful to anyone around us, anyone who assist, who help, who contribute, who participated. And the ultimate gratefulness has to be to the divinity, to the God, in other words, right? Because after this, I'm going to talk about why we are deserved, why or the divinity is deserved to be appraised, right? Amazing thing he has given to us. But despite all this, how arrogant we are, developing misperception to other people, wrong perception to other people, right? So this is some definition. I'm not actually very keen, but these are the organizational psychologists or behavioral psychologists. They have said, right, about the perception in the context of organization and so on. So I'm not very keen to highlight all these things. And how about the perception in the workplace? That is exactly the talk about, right? Perception in the workplace is directly our cognitive decision making, right? So because cognitive here means our knowledge, our previous experiences, and on top of that, we have mental schema, right? That we develop. We perceive whatever thing we perceive. I perceive now I'm using my visual perception. Riza is right in front of me, right? I perceive and I keep a picture of Riza in my mental schema, right? Then whenever I come to Erlanga, I see and I definitely remember Riza because I cross-check with my mental schema, which is my previous experiences, right? That is why newborn babies, 1 year, 2 year, 3 or 4 years old, we bring them to get the exposure to outside the world, and we introduce, right? They might not understand all these things, but they keep a picture of that, and their mental schema become enlarged, right? They become knowledgeable. And when they see things, what we have introduced to them, and they check, right? Feature matching theory, we call, right? Feature matching. The feature they have, they see something and they try to match. If it is matching, fine. They realize what is the thing, right? If it is not matching, the beautiful thing here is they keep the new elements, they keep a picture of that also, right? For example, I'm sitting here in my office, under the door here, right? Under the door, there is a snake coming in. And then what I do? I face or I escape usually, right? So how I know that snake is poisonous or just okay, not poisonous. For example, how I know? I check with my mental schema. In hearsay or in my parents or in my societies, I heard that if this is the type of snake and it's very poisonous, right? Then I can take a step, right? So all these things are related to perception. But when I see the snake, right at once, immediately I can say that is poisonous. How? We are going to start the perception here. How? When I see, I immediately say how long it takes, whether the snake is poisonous, dangerous or not. In reaction time, it's just milliseconds. What is milliseconds? A second divided into 1,000 times. Just few milliseconds only. There is no other element that faster in this world. How? We capture, my eyes capture the information, right? And send to the brain. The brain immediately give feedback that is poisonous. That is poisonous, right? How faster? How faster? Amazing things, right? So how our eyes capture this information, how our ears capture the information, our nose, right? Our tongue and our skin. These are the elements that we gather information, right? Through the senses, right? So before I continue, I just would like to highlight some of the elements, right? Why perception is so important, right? Because perception can be my perception, and similarly, perception can be also your president perception. My perception is not going to affect many people, but your president perception, right, is going to affect millions of people. How many millions you have now? 330 plus, right? So that is why it depends on the level of the person who perceive, right? That can be from the very small case up to the national level, meaning that we have many examples right now, right? In different countries. I give some example later, fighting each other, right? This is just simply because of the different perceptions that we have. So perception is so important, isn't it? But from the small, very small elements up to the national level. If you perceive wrongly things, then your decision is going to be affected, right? You can go to war just because of the simple perception, right? And that is why fair, objective perception is necessary, right? And exactly what that I mentioned, that we're not very keen to right, wrong, and all this. Rather, how we make it fair. And everybody is basically deserved to be treated fairly, right? Despite my skin color, my name, my background, my ethnicity, everybody is deserved to be treated fairly and objectively. So that is why also fair perception is important. And human being is, all of us, just hungry when other people are going to treat us fairly. Because I'm saying this, I'm victim of unfair perception, right? So I think I have to, I forgot to introduce myself a little bit. Let me say a little bit. I come from Myanmar, And I, of course, educated in Gajah Mada also. And I back to my country, I worked for the government. And when I asked permission to go for my PhD in Malaysia, then I was given only two options: either you quit or you go. Sorry, you stay or you quit. Because I was sent by the government. They said, we cannot allow you for second time. You know the situation there, right? And then I quit. I chose to quit. And I came to Malaysia, and I'm quite long time here already. I completed my PhD here. And before I complete, I joined MSU. It's quite already more than 10 years. So my background, I have a degree in psychology, IO psychology in Gajah Mada, and when I came to Malaysia at last 10, 15 years ago, I tell you, psychology was not popular at all. I tried to continue with my IO psychology, PhD in IO psychology, but I do not find the right place. And I changed my mind. I moved to business administration, where I focus on the OB, right? So OB is IO, IO is OB, right? So I was still in the same area, right? And that is a little bit of, so I come from a country where we are victims there, simply because of the perception of some political elite, those who are usually military in our country, continuously after the independence. I tell you, we got independent 10 years, almost 10 years earlier than you. And we have nationwide revolution 10 years before you, in 88. You have reformasi in 97, 98, around that. So 10 years, right? But I should say your revolution process was somehow successful. But while we are having again under the dictatorship, under the military coup, recent coup that you know also, and very unfortunate the situation. However, this is not the topic here, so we are going to continue with our perception. This was just a little bit of my background. It's directly related to the perception. That is why I have given you this, my personal example also. You can see. Now, people in other societies also. Just recently, yesterday also got shooting in the US. I think 4 killed, before about 21. So these are basically, if you ask them now, they are going to say that these boys, these kids, they have psychology problems, they have abnormalities and all this. But when it comes to Muslim terrorist, if it is done by their people, they have abnormalities. So this is just a double standard that we have in the society. Related to perception again, right? That is the perception they develop. Okay, so to continue, I will start with a very literal or academic things here, literal meaning, perception. We capture information through our sensory receptors, sensors. We have basically 5, 2 of them very frequently used, and 3 other perception is depends on, right? When we require only. So these 2, whether or not we have to perceive. You have noise, you have sound and other things. You cannot close your ears, right? You have to perceive. Similarly, you have, as long as you have a good vision, then you are perceiving all the stimuli around you, right? And we are very selective. And that element is also given by the divinity, right? Why we are not perceiving everything? We are very selectively perceive. In case if you are perceiving everything, I don't think so we can even survive, right? So this selectivity is also built in with us, right? It's built in. Automatically, we are very selective. Example I give you. Here, probably there are many students from non-psychology, from other faculties. I believe that. So if I ask you, my beloved students here, how many of you know Riza? I believe there are many. But if I ask you, have you seen? Definitely you have seen in the corridor there, or in the library, or in the faculty, when you pass by, you have seen. But if you ask me, have you perceived? You have not. Because you are selective, you're not perceiving everything. Right? So after we select, how we select? Based on we have to develop some interest, we have to develop some attention, right? Then only we select, right? Because you might not have attention to Reza because Reza is not your lecturer, for example, or you have no interest because you are not taking that subject, probably, right? So that is why, based on all these elements, we select and we perceive. How I know that you have not perceived? Because some of you will not be able to explain me who Riza is. Because perception means you collect all the information from the sensory receptors and you have to be able to interpret, right? If you are able to interpret, if you are able to explain, then only you perceive, right? If you cannot explain, you have not perceived things, as simple as that. And we organize, we interpret. Only when we are able to interpret, then based on the interpretation, we make the decision. We give our response, right? So all these things happen basically through the perception is a process, through the perceptual process, right? Let's see. All these elements are involved in perceptual process. Sensation, I have already mentioned how our senses capture the information, right? I will talk a little bit more about how all these senses capture the information. And transduction is something also very important. Because just now I perceive the snake, right? I perceive the snake. The snake is not going to my brain. Only the information is going. Because the brain has its language. The language of the brain is only the brain understand chemical or electrical impulses, the information only. So we have to transform what I perceive right in front of me. There is a wall. The wall is white. How I know? I capture, I send to the brain, my brain give me the feedback, the wall is white, for example, right? So that is how the wall is not going to my brain, but the information about the wall has passed to the brain. How? Through the sensory receptors and through the sensory pathways. Right? What is sensory pathways? Our whole body is just bundles of neurons, millions and millions of neurons. So how information is passed from one neuron to the other neuron, to the next neuron, to the next neuron, until it reaches to the brain. So which part of the brain? There are specific part, right? We know all these things as a psychologist, so you have learned in intro to psychology, even all this, right? We have all the lobes, and right hemisphere, left hemisphere. We have specific cortex areas in the brain. and which handle. So how we know this? Scientists have already identified which area is responsible for what activities, right? What sensation. Mostly, we're talking about occipital lobe and also frontal or prefrontal lobe. When we use our visual perception, we make a decision about the language, communication, and all this are done in that way. So that, however, as a psychology student, we have to remember that despite scientists have already identified different areas, different cortex in the brain responsible for different sensation, right? However, the brain works as a whole, right? When the brain has to respond, they are interconnected, and the brain as a whole responds to information, right? So how this is the very basic or fundamental process of perception. You have a stimuli. A stimulus is one, a stimuli is plural. Many stimuli we have around us. When I just drove from my home to my campus, I have seen so many things, so many different people, different cars, different things. But did I perceive all this? No, of course not, because that is not necessary for me. I was very selective, and I choose relevant stimuli to perceive. Here we have the butterfly and light waves for perception. We have light waves and sound waves, right? For hearing. Here for light waves. So light for visual perception. It goes to from the pupils, it goes inside my eyes, and exactly going to the back of the eyes, there is a place we call retina, right? And right across the retina at the back of the eyes, there are neurons waiting for the information, right? Well, what we name those neurons for the visual perception? Probably most of you very familiar, we call rods and cones, right? Rods to perceive black and white about the light, and cones to perceive about the color, right? And how many, I tell you later, and this is how we perceive, then it comes, the butterfly is transformed into information only. It's yellow, black, color, something like flying and all this. You have your own definition. And transduced means from physical to electrical impulses or neural impulses. And sensed, after that, we send to the brain, we get the feedback from the brain, and then perceived, right? So that is what we call usually the basic perceptual processes. I know some of you probably a bit boring because I'm talking about these undergraduate things, right? Never mind, I will move now. And this is fundamental process. Again, I'm not going to repeat: selectively, organize, interpret. This is also, we develop attention. We get all the sensory information through our senses, the stimuli, and sometimes it is biases are there, and that is going to affect our interpretation. Biases are due to probably our sensory receptors do not properly capture. For example, you are reading a book, and your friend came just right beside you, telling the Korean drama last night and about all these. I don't know whether you like or not, and whether then your concentration is divided, right? So I do not know how much you are going to capture from your reading and how much you are going to capture from your friends. So if there is a limitation in your capturing, collecting information, then your perception is going to be affected, right? So this is also talking about a little bit about the stimuli, and at the same time, what are the perception we have? Basically, here it is mentioned only two or three, right? Visual, your tongue, right? And also touch and all this. But we have 5 senses. The most frequently used is, as I mentioned, our auditory and visual, right? So these are key players. So now let me just very quickly give you an example of how we visualize the things. We visualize coming to the eyes, it is upside down. All of us, we know in the retina, and then around the retina, there are rods, cones capturing. Those information that captured through the optic nerve. Through the optic, these are optic nerve that you can see going to the brain. Which area? We are in number 4 now. The area is occipital lobe there, and also connected to the frontal and prefrontal. So that is how information goes to the part of the brain, and the brain responds, right? So if I go a little bit detail here, this is the enlarged area of this is a small area. This is a small area here. When we enlarge, it is very much microscopic. When we enlarge, we are going to see all the rods and cones. Rods in red color, you can see cones in blue color. Those are the neurons, basically, capture the information. How many neurons you have? Just right, small area here around the retina. We have, this is how it works. They capture the information and send through the optic nerve to the brain. And here we have a comparison, right? Amazing, isn't it? You see, rods, functions of rods here, functions of cones. We can specifically go to the number there. How many in that small area? 120 million. To me, it's amazing and praise to the God. Right? Because just a small area, millions and millions elements there. Is it possible in our thinking? You see, in the very small area in the retina of the eyes there, and millions of rods and millions of cones, 5 millions. So I'm not going to say other things. And so what is our perception? This is just example of color only. We are not talking about the other perception. Color only. How many color we can perceive? Able to discriminate 200 steps in the visible aspect, because we have a visible spectrum, right? Those who have learned about these things, 400 to 700 nanometer. Beyond that, we cannot visualize. The information must be 400 to 700 nanometer. So there are 200 steps in the visible spectrum, and distinguish among 500 levels of brightness, and we can discriminate among 20 levels of saturation. So multiply by all this, then 2 million colors. Can any one of you here tell me just about 20 to 30 names about the color? It's very hardly, right? Because we do not have language. We do not have vocabulary, but we are given ability to perceive 2 million colors. We just do not have the language only. So isn't it amazing? To me, it's too amazing. Right? We are given all these equipments. Why we wanted to use all the misinformation to interpret someone differently and all this? We are given all these capacities, right? And now I'm going to say a little bit of because I know that we have very limited time, right? So how information is delivered to the brain through the neurons I mentioned just now, right? So what is the composition of neurons? What is the functions of neurons? We are going to see a little bit. Again, there are many amazing things that we are going to see. So this is basically the neurons. We have information coming from up here, from this side, from all the dendrites we call here, right? Dendrites, and coming to the cell body and axon, and to this end. Here we are also having dendrites, but at the end of the dendrites, there is a terminal buttons, we call. These terminal buttons is going to join to the next neuron, right? The other neuron. So which area of the other neuron? Here, the cell body, the dendrites of these other neurons. So that is how it's going to be transferred information from one neurons to the other neurons. Then here, many amazing things that we can find out again. Here, this axon is completely covered. So this cover we call myelin sheath, and myelinated also we call myelinated, this cover. So no wonder when people grow older, this myelinated area, myelin sheath, the covered area is damaged, right? Due to the age, due to the other factors. So, and the other amazing things, if we have, for example, a small kid, boy, for example, you have baby at home, your siblings or your niece, nephew, you just go to their, around their ear and shout very loudly, some of the neurons damaged already, right? But what happened? Immediately replaced. For the young people, immediately replacement is there, right? But for the elderly people, there is no replacement, and there is a decay only. Some neurons damaged, gone, damaged. There is no replacement, right? And the quality of the neurons also not like younger people. Yeah, if these myelin sheaths are damaged, and then what happened? Information is not going to transfer 100%, right? Information from one neuron received, just now I received about the snake, and some of the information decay, and maybe 70% delivered, and so on, right? That is how elderly people, they cannot see, they cannot hear, these things happen, right? So this is how, I think the same picture, basically input from this side and output to the other neurons connected from right side here. How it is connected? This is what we call terminal button. This is enlarged picture, of course, right? This is terminal button, just now we mentioned, and goes to cell body of other neurons. And again, there is another amazing thing. This terminal button and the other cell, the other neurons, is not directly connected, right? There is a space there. How sophisticated, you see. But information is transferred. How? There are some liquid, right? Liquid. So this gap we call synaptic gap. So in this synaptic gap area, there are some liquid. So this quality of this liquid also meaningful. For elderly people, this quality of this liquid is not good enough, right? So that is why information is not transferred. And sometimes we call reuptake here. You can see reuptake. Reuptake means information comes here, and in the synaptic area, some information remain there, not transferred to the other neuron. But the neuron here has to retake back this information. Otherwise, if other information come to that area, it's not going to be delivered, right? That is why reuptake is there also. Reuptake has also to be function. Immediately some information not transferred to the other neuron, you have to take back. This neuron terminal button has to collect this information back, supposed to be. So these are very sophisticated and amazing things. And for the visualization, so far, what I have learned is some scientists trying to develop some artificial eyes, and up to now, with their full effort, as for the blind people, some blind people, they can differentiate a little bit of black and white and so on. But that is the maximum, I guess. To me, I don't think so. The whole world, you try to develop an eye, also, I don't think so it's going to be possible, right? So that is why all these amazing things given to us, right? We have to utilize all these and develop something good, right? So these are the functions again about the neurons. I'm not going to say all these things. And I will touch a little bit of also hearing, because this is the second most using sensory receptor, right? So basically information comes here, and from the outer ear, we have 3 ears, right? Outer, middle, and inner ear. All functions are in the inner ear, because sensory receptors are waiting information for the information in the inner ear. Which area? Particularly in the cochlear area. This is a spiral, but when you see this is quite long, and inside and outside there are receptors, right? Waiting for around the cochlea. And also automatically they collect the information and send to their brain. And very specific, right? For every tone, every noise, every sound, there are specialized neurons. So here in eyes, we call rods and cones. Here we call hair cells. It has different name. When it comes to our taste, for example, taste buds we call, right? So we have different concept that we use to name the receptors. Okay, so now the amazing thing here, I will tell you, this to me particularly, this oval window here, oval window. Now we have automatic remote window, right? Remote door, remote gate, and all this. We still have to press, right? But this one, the God, the creator, has created in a way that when inner information comes from outer ear, striking to the tiny membrane we call eardrum, and that eardrum collect the information sent to the middle ear process, and which are the information should be sent to the inner ear, right? When the middle ear decided, the door automatically opened. And then when information has already received, automatically close. This oval window is automatic. Amazing. So receive the information and from the cochlea. So how, this is, again, I'm not going to repeat. How many receptors waiting there? Here, not million for the hearing. There are inside this cochlea, there are about 3,500 outer ear, about 12,000 hair cells are waiting for the information and capture, sent to the brain, right? So what is the range of hearing we have? Compared to some other animals, we have very limited range, particularly. But that is the range compatible for us, right? Need better. This is the limit that given to us. Example is usually from 20 to 20,000 hertz. This is for even now I'm speaking probably around 3,000-4,000 hertz. But for the louder noise, it goes to 15,000, 10,000, 15, 20,000, and so on, probably. So usually for the normal speaking, 2000 to 4000 hertz. So for some animals, even below 20, like elephant, big animal, but the has very low, you can see 20. Sometimes 20 is just rustling some leaves outside there. When you're sitting here, some leaves moving in the tree, that can be even more than 20, right? So 20 is basically almost like no sounds, right? Even elephants, hearing is that up to that level. Dogs, 40,000, cats, 50,000, and dolphins. These are just example given. Some animals we have below human capacity and above human capacity, right? Just for the example only. Here again, I'm going to touch a little bit of, I will not spend much time here. There's olfactory, right? We have receptors again there, and receive. This is the area particularly mentioned here also. We have afferent fibers, olfactory nerves capture the information and send to the brain similarly. So what is the capacity that we have? We can discriminate about 100,000 odors, smells. Right? Amazing capacity that we are given, right? At the same time, rats 5 to 20 times more than sensitive than us. That is why no wonder rat, if there is a cat around, rat automatically realize, because very high capacity given to them, right? They don't have to see the cat, right? Cat is the other side of the wall, but they can smell, right? And dogs at the same time, 300 to 10,000 times compared to human being, right? So this is about the taste. Taste buds also collect different information, and what is the capacity that we have? We have about approximately 10,000 taste buds. So it's amazing also, but not everyone is maximizing this, right? I have seen in one program, there is because Sri Lanka is one of the tea producing country. There is a man there, he can taste all the tea taste in one experiment, right? He tastes hundreds of tea, just taste, he can differentiate. But these are given to very limited people probably, and you have to practice also, right? So these are the capacity that's given to us. And about the touch, similarly, you can see there are Makkal, Rufeni, these are some red. Here you can see and SA1 and SA2, even though slow, the one is slow adapting and rapid adapting, right? In our tiny skin here, sometimes we get some wound here. You just remove your tiny skin. There are millions of neurons again waiting for the information, right? And then similarly, these are the forms of some in the very surface and some in the very depth area to collect the information, because we might have different information, right? Just sometime in the surface only, sometime in the depth area. So these are the things that usually collect and send to the brain. Now we come to the map of the body to see another amazing thing, how specialized. Even my finger, I have fingers here, all the fingertips for my finger here, and a specialized area is there in the brain, right? It's so amazing again. Even my finger here, different area, right? For the different area, when I touch with the tips, when I touch in the middle, when I touch, There are specialized area that you can see here. This is brain, so this is our body here. For the thumb, there is a specialized area. For the hands, for the fingers, for the ears, and all these specialized areas in our brain here, especially in this cortex, right? Okay, these are the lobes. I think psychology students, all of you familiar here. These are the lobes. Lobes usually across, right? Lobes is usually located across. We have right and left. All the lobes got right hemisphere and left hemisphere. So the function is across, right? My right eye's information is controlled by the left hemisphere. Left eyes, for example, right hemisphere. So that is why if you have any, for example, a stroke patient or something like that, you see if right side is not working, basically the problem is in the left side of the brain, right? So that is, so now, if these are the perception we are given, the capacity we are given to us, then now we have to capture in the full capacity, and we have to be able to see the things as a whole. Now I'm going to move a little bit of something like Gestalt theory and all this, but it is not exactly, I'm talking about the Gestalt. How important is to develop a overall perception, right? Just one part of the perception is not going to help us. You are a decision maker in the organization. Just at the beginning, I have mentioned, right? Just hearsay, someone tell, oh, this guy is not working properly, and so on. So if you are making decision on this, just part of the decision is not going to be similar to as a whole, right? So to see that, this is the perception that we can see as example. This is basically in my primary back home, primary school lesson, right? Primary school textbook, I found this one. Testing animals by blind people, right? 6 blind people here testing different part. And then after that, for example, the first guy testing the tail, and I asked him, what is the elephant like? He said, it's like rope. And the other guy tests the body. What is the elephant like? He said, it's like wall, and so on, right? The trunks, the tusk, similarly. Tusk, like a sperm, like a snake, right? Trunk is like a snake, and the leg is like tree trunk. Example, after the experiment, if I collect back a rope, a wall, a fan here is, when I ask what is the ear like, the guy says like fan. What is the fan? You still have there in Indonesia. When I go to some kampung area, I saw the traditional fan you made of handmade, and you wave for that. That is a fan there. Sometimes you use different material, right? So the guy says it's something like fan. So in case if I get together rope, wall, fan, tree, snake, and spark, I get together, can it be an elephant? Definitely not, right? So because we are looking part of the things only, so we have to see as a whole. So here similarly in perception, this is the lesson in perception, right? So we have initially these structuralist point of view means you have to structure the whole thing. Initially just dot only, dot. But when all this dot you structure in a way that is assumed to be, then become human face, right? So that is how we have to see the things. Sometimes we have to structure and see the things, right? Here I will ask the student here, What you see here, this is a very significant perception lesson that we practice in the class. Now I'm asking the student, those who have learned perception, those who have not learned, what are the elements that you can see there? Anyone, you want to respond? How important is developing perception, right? Anyone, quickly you want to respond? Should I name? I should not, right? I'm embarrassing, right? I will not name, definitely. So if I tell you, then you can probably realize what are the things there. Here, this is a forest. Some people probably hunting, or I do not know, the horse, the guys there hunting and all this. But if you see from different aspect, you are going to see 12 human faces there. 12 human faces. Here, isn't it one face? Eyes, this is one face, this is one face, this is one face, this is one face again, your eyes, nose here. So here you are going to find, here also this is the face here. Can you see a face here? Eyes, nose, mouth, right?
Yes.
Here also one face, nose, eyes, mouth here. So you can see there are 12, right? You see how having a proper perception, otherwise you will not realize. Probably this is a forest, hunting and all this, but when you concentrate, you focus, you have a perception of, you can interpret, right? You can define, you can explain. There are 12 faces there, for example, right? So now we are going to see a little bit of, I mentioned that I'm not going to say about the theory and all this, right? But here a little bit of attribution theory is basically helping us when we perceive things. Because we perceive based on the distinctiveness, based on the consensus, based on the consistency. What do we mean distinctiveness? When we learn about the personality, also same thing, right? Personality based on the distinctiveness, unique, we call, right? Uniqueness, based on the consistency and all this. Because there are people, I'm talking about the personality a little bit, people sometimes behave differently, right? When you are at home, you are showing different face, right? Different characteristics. When you come to the class, different. When you go with the friends, different. So this is basically not recommended. In our belief, in our faith, also not recommended. You have to be always consistent, right? Otherwise, you are not giving right picture to other people, right? Try to behave almost, try to portray ourselves or as much as in the similar manner, right? So exactly here, our perception also happen based on the distinctiveness. We see how every individual act in the same situation. This is the situation, for example, in the classroom situation, context, how every student behave, right? Who is distinctively behaving, who is differently behaving, and so on. We perceive our perception, we develop our perception based on the distinctiveness and also based on the consensus. Different individual behave in the same manner, in the same situation, in the same situation, right? And consistency, individual act, this is highly recommended. In personality, I'm talking about. Because some people, some student I have seen, they are very shy when it comes to the class, but when go out of the class, they are the one very talkative and very all this. So you are showing your different picture. So that is not helping us when we perceive you. right? That is why you have to try. If you are any one of you doing these things, try to correct, right? Give us similar picture as much as possible so that we can develop a better perception, right? And individual acts same way over time. This is highly recommended. Today you behave, tomorrow, and in the classroom, in the society, at home, you have a consistency, for example. So these are the elements. Based on that, we develop our perception. However, there are fundamental errors and self-serving biases. We human being, right? Self-serving. Right? Sometimes I remember suddenly self-serving bias is one of the we have a village head, right? Very dictator, powerful village head. He visited somewhere with his followers, and he said, because in a what do you call in a wall, is it wall we call, and the one side of the uh, land is a bit higher and the other side of the land is lower. But he's saying that the water level is this side, the water level is higher, the other side water level is lower, as if the water level is not even, right? But the followers say, yes, 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 boss, water level is. So then the village head very happy because you are serving him. He developed self-serving bias, something like so. And these are the very frequent error we make, right? Of course, we develop selective perception. Here, selective perception means the one that I mentioned just now, because we have limitation, that is why we selectively perceive. But this one is different. So this selective perception is going to be harmful for us to develop a fair perception. Halo effect. All of you are familiar with the halo effect. And we are going to see one by one again, very quickly. Contrast effect, projection, stereotyping, all these are giving us particularly harmful effect when we wanted to develop so meaning that these errors we learn here to avoid. That can be as a student, you are given last minute, your lecturer has given to you instruction, something like assignment, all this, you have to submit by this and that. So you sometimes you develop different perception, right? But see all this to avoid, in order to be able to avoid, not to develop a unfair perception. What is selective perception, for example? Usually based on interest, background, experience, and attitudes. It's very natural. We perceive things that we have interest. Just now, some of you do not know Riza means because you have no interest. So you do not develop a perception. Your selective perception is okay. But if you are in an organization, you are not knowing, you are from different faculty, not knowing Riza is probably okay. But in industrial psychology, in psychology faculty, you should be knowing, right? So that otherwise you will not be able to interpret, right? And halo effect is basically, for example, in employee selection, halo effect is basically the first impression, right? First impression. Why we emphasize this first impression when it comes to the perception? Because in Bahasa Indonesia, we have to say that this is menghantui. Because you have developed, suddenly the interviewee came to the room, not wearing properly, maybe dress or maybe hair and all this, not properly. Suddenly you develop a negative perception. And that negative perception is continuously giving you difficulties. to make a decision. It is not that your first impression, you develop first impression and gone there. No, that is going to affect the whole interview process. You might be asking difficult questions. You have already pre-decided, because that guy is not going to, I'm not going to select this guy, because you have developed already different perception, and then you will make him difficult. Finally, who is losing basically? You are losing. He might be a very talented people, right? He might be a very suitable candidate, but because of your halo effect, finally you lose, the organization lose, right? So, and contrast effect. Sometimes we also compare. For example, I have two sons, right? My son, number one, I have three children basically. My daughter is now joining MSU, doing her degree here, and I have two sons. One, within 4-5 years, he's going to the school, and also he's going to the tahfiz, right? Before he complete primary, Alhamdulillah, he completed tahfiz. But the other one is doing same thing. He is also, this is the last year for him in primary, but in tahfiz he is still halfway. So if I compare, then it's going to be difficult for them, difficult for me. Because sometimes we cannot compare, right? That is going to be harmful for us to make a right decision, because different nature, right? So, and projection, usually, if you are the boss in the company, you are the head of the department, so usually this projection used to happen. Because you stay late in your job, for example, because you have so many things to do, you project to other people also should stay late. This is not fair already, right? So that is why projection is also a harmful things when we wanted to develop. And a stereotyping, right, is again another harmful things that you have in certain tribes, ethnicity, for example, based on the skin color and all, you have different perception already, right? So these people are always used to cheat, these people are hardworking. So you already have something also pre-decisive, right? So this is stereotyping, also not going to help. Expectancy. This is also a kind of biased perception, because you are expecting. Sometimes this expectancy theory very much applicable for undergraduate for us here, because when we in the final, you call a scriptsy, right? Here we call thesis for final year. When they write, they study, they do the study, they develop framework and hypothesis and all this. After that, some of the hypotheses rejected, right? And they got frustrated, come to us, sir, what happened? My hypothesis 2, my hypothesis 3 rejected. So when I used to say, so what? You just present, you just explain, but they are frustrated because they are expecting all hypotheses should be supported. So this expectation, this type of expectation, what they do, some of them go back home and then try to manipulate data, right? Change here, change there. So because they wanted to have things according to their expectation, right? But that will never happen, right? So that is why this pre or prior expectation is also going to be harmful for us to develop. Okay, some of the errors that we make in categorization, homogenization, and differentiation. This is something not actually different from the errors that we mentioned just now. We used to categorize, right? Our groups, and this is also a politics basically in organization. Some people in the key position, they try to develop some cluster. Those who are supporting them, they become cluster. This creating cluster is very dangerous for the organization, right? So similarly here, categorizing in group, out group, you are in my group, you are in other group, and all this, doing these things also is going to be not assisting us in developing fair perception. Homogenization. If you see this kind of behavior, this is from our community, for example. If you see that other things from, so this is also homogeneity and heterogeneity, basically, right? And differentiation. Even within the group, you have favorable, less favorable, that also can happen. Exactly, the HOD, the dean, and you have some favorable people there, you have also some unfavorable people there. And you, based on that, no matter how these unfavorable group teams are doing their best, but it does not come to your perception, right? These are the things. That is why ultimately social perception is, so we have to combine and integrate and interpret. That will help us. However, to minimize these perceptual biases that we mentioned, a long list, what we can do, right? As whoever we are, as a student, for example, as a lecturer, authorities, and right, what we can do is high level of awareness. Especially, I'm talking to the psychology student. Right? Psychology student, here we try to train as much as possible for the awareness. Right? Awareness is the thing going to differentiate whether you're a psychology student, you have psychology background, or non-psychology. Okay? Psychology if you have psychology student, psychology background, you should be alert always, right? That is what we are talking about, the memory. When we learn memory, we have, before when I was in undergraduate, we have only short-term memory, long-term memory, right? But later, psychologists found that there's another level, which is sensory memory, right? This is what we are talking about here, capturing the information. And short-term memory, later, we are not saying short-term memory, we call walking memory. You try to explore this one, or you may do some research. In your scriptsy, you try to how to develop walking memory. Because walking memory is the one every psychology student has to be aware of, and developing your walking memory. Walking memory can be developed. Walking memory is the one going to give you how smart you are, right? How familiar with the things around you, right? Not necessarily you are very intelligent. I don't say that you have to be very intelligent. You may be just a mediocre, just middle, normal student. But when I ask you, for example, what was the outcome of Champion League? Very quickly, I'm expecting answer from female student. Not male. Male, they know already. Champion League, just recently. Anyone who won the match? No one. So no wonder. So that is the thing. Going to make us, our working memory is improved. Working memory is functioning, right? Meaning that we know everything. I'm a girl student, what to do with the soccer game, football game, and all this. No, this is world top class football match. From the whole Europe, there were about 58 clubs in a very high level football match happening and won. And you should be knowing, despite your gender and all this, right? What is happening right now in Ukraine, for example? We should be knowing this is what we are developing a working memory, right? So exactly, the more you develop your working memory, the more awareness and alertness that we have, right? Example, you are a male, for example, you are a youth, right? You are a youth, IO psychology student, all right? So what is happening in Syrian refugee camp? What is your role? What should be your stand? This is what we call world view, right? So I'm in Indonesia, everything is just santai, go easy, everything is available here. I have the money, I have house and everything. So what? You should be having a world view, right? So that you can quickly respond. You can feel, you can quickly respond. You have a stand at least. What should be my role? Things are happening there, right? That is what we call awareness, right? So, for example, the shooting in the US recently, what is your view? What is your perception? Of course, it is nothing to do with you, but you should have developed whether shooting there is good or what should the government is supposed to be taking the role, what should be the community. So this is what we call the awareness and high level of awareness, and seek information from various sources. Before we make a decision, find information, collect information from as various sources as possible, right? Of course, from the reliable sources. That is why for undergraduate, we ask you to find, you go for 50 articles, 20 articles, 100 research articles before. Why we limit to research article published in good journal? Because to find out reliable information, these are the reliable sources. If you find from different sources, we do not know whether the information is a researched information or reliable sources. So, and be empathic, different from sympathy, right? So before we make a decision, saying someone, you have this problem, that problem, you are not cooperating, you are not a good team player, you have this, that, before saying that, try to wear his shoes, try to be in his place. Probably he has different personality, right? Or maybe he has some other problem. So, and influence perceptions of others when they are incorrect and incomplete. So if we know properly, we should be able to fulfill, right? We see, this is dawah also, right? We see someone is doing something wrong. At least we have 3 levels, right? If you possible, use your power, your hand, or at least the last one is you hate, or you are not happy with that, right? And avoid common perceptions, distortion, avoid inappropriate attribution for ourselves. We have to avoid and apply diversity management program in the organization, so that can boost our understanding on having a fair perception. So I will touch a little bit of COVID is almost over, endemic already, but I wanted to touch a little bit because many people developing negative perception, right? So I wanted to have a little bit of positive things also that we learn or we perceive from the pandemic, right? So why we are so much worry and emphasizing, of course it is deadly, of course it is real, because I lost my daughter. I have only daughter I lost, 44 years old with 4 kids, growing kids, suddenly fever, The next day, she's not with us, for example. So it is real. However, how we are overemphasizing and all this, if you see WHO just recently, 2020, 7 million every year killed because of the air pollution only. But we don't emphasize that. This is just one example only. Other chronic diseases, we have silent killers, no medication at all. Your liver problem, your kidney problem, you are affected, no proper medication, but of course the effect is not right now, maybe after 10 years, after 20 years, when your liver is completely damaged, when your kidney is not functional at all, damaged, then only the effect is there. But this is happening now, for example, right? No proper medication. Transplant also not successful all the time. These are silent killers and killing millions also. We have different perspective, right? So this is the data. We don't have interest on this basically. It's already, we get used to already. But this is, I just took from this morning data, 6.3 million, official, unofficial, probably another maybe million also, we do not know, right? Even in the developed countries, they are not showing the right figure. So this is the data from the United States until this morning, and Brazil, India, the third highest, and then I took Indonesia and Malaysia just for comparison. This is the figure that we have. Indonesia also, I don't think so this is the right figure. Probably you have not listed many cases in some pulau there, pulau, you have small pulau, nobody reached there. So that is why we have, this is conspiracy, right? Probably man-made, this, right? And there are many other things, right? This morning, I was thinking of what are the things that I'm going to say about Indonesia, right? Then I suddenly thought of, you have many problems also, right? Economy probably doing better, right? But you have politics, religion, sometimes mix up, sometimes attacking each other, and too much liberal, too much democratic. You have Salafi on the other hand. You have so many beliefs, so many gangs and all this, right? Ulama, some working for the modernization, etc. Right? Very recently, not quite recently, you bring some top, basically ulama from overseas and now put in the jail, just simply because of this different perception, right? You have different political background and different perception. So Malaysia is almost same, right? We have coup in my country, recently. But the irony things here, I wanted to highlight a little bit. I'm not saying anything politics, right? Indonesian government, I know that you are live streaming this, I don't have problem. Indonesian government is saying exactly the narrative given by the junta. I have been living in your country for a few years. I admire, I respect all the population. You're very humble. You don't listen to these narratives, despite you still love people suffering there, right? Even though the government, through the media and all this, giving all the wrong, but these Rohingyas are terrorists and all this, but you are the one making decision at the end of the day, and you are the developing your perception. You have, I believe you have, because whenever I come there, I talk to the cab drivers from the airport, from the cab drivers. Even cab drivers, taxi drivers has a very strong fair perception. This junta, it is true, we know that killing people, they're killing Muslims there. They hate Muslims, they develop hatred. through the social media, and they kill. But your government, unfortunately, I don't know, they have probably different interest, right? Different narrative saying that and all this, right? So in Malaysia also we have seen sometimes if you need, you go down to the street and get all the Rohingya, you demonstrate, demo, they come. I'm talking about the elite politician saying about the Rohingya. But when you don't need, you make them victims, saying that they are taking the locals' job. In fact, these Rohingyas, they do not have any document. They are just grass cutting, doing cement, build construction and all this. I don't think the Malaysian people will do this job. Why you are creating and narrating a story, Rohingyas are taking your job. They had suffered there. Now they are in another discrimination, for example, right? So these are all due to the developing perception, either for self-serving bias, for self-serving only, or you are developing a perception with a very limited information that you know, right? That is why I say here, developing fair perception is so important than ever before, particularly now we are in the endemic. And okay, despite all the negative things, let me just a little bit talk about the positive things. Because when I in my OB class, sometimes I get my student involved, right? Say all the positive things, say all the negative things, and make a debate and all this sometimes, right? It's very interactive. So, of course, here air pollution, water pollution, and significantly less means that was in the lockdown only. Because lockdown, we cannot see all the transports going there and no pollution. It was very fine. I saw in one program, India, some part of the India, they see the sun first time after a few years because of the polluted air there. Right? And we all become very health conscious. I personally, I'm doing very regular because my sugar is in borderline. I just realized, and I'm very active doing all the exercises, physical exercises, and also controlling my carbohydrate and all this, and diet and all this. We become very active. We can become very aware. And we are avoiding all the unhealthy things, increase awareness on work-life balance. After we work from home, then we realize how difficult is this, right? How imbalances that can be happen, right? Especially in the West, because they have many problems. They are living together, and before they have seen each other only at night for a few hours. Now the whole 24 hours they have to be right in front of them, and having many conflict, right? But we do not have that so far. And the more widespread realization of the importance of psychology, isn't it? In Indonesia also, definitely, right? People now realize how important is psychology. So pandemic come for us, basically, this is very positive for psychology. I can see in Malaysia, right? Just what I mentioned, when I came 10, 15 years ago here, no, not very small number of people talking about the psychology. Now it's really widespread. And of course, I want to spend much time. That was in the lockdown, save revenue credit card also to others, those who are really, really affected. We can develop our sympathy, empathy, and all this. Enhance online teaching. Also, as for the teaching learning, we develop all this. However, I tell you, just to say in MSU, we were doing these things long before pandemic. So we did not face really any difficulties in getting into the online teaching, learning, and all this. Because the only one thing that I remember, we have to immediately come up. We submitted the question for the face-to-face examination, but suddenly because of the lockdown, we have to immediately develop another set of questions for online exam, which is hot question, right? Because open book. Other than that, we did not face any difficulties here. So I think that's all. Not really. I was unable to focus in a particular organization context. It was very general, and that's the thing that I could deliver here in a short meeting. So thank you again. If you have any question or any comments, so you're welcome.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Forbis, for giving us such an informative and amazing explanation. Yeah. The participant not only learn about the perception in the organizational context that usual do in performance appraisal, but also recall their knowledge from biopsychological subject about concells, retina, and so on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now come to the question and answer session. Please raise your hand and don't forget to mention your name before giving question. Any question from student or participant? You can click the raise hand symbol if you have a question.
I just now I saw someone raise their hand. I don't know who is this.
Oh yes, Ida. I see Mrs. Ida raised hand before. Mrs. Ida? Miss Ida?
Oh, no, Miss Reza.
Oh, okay.
Probably supporting me. Probably. Okay, agree with me, probably.
Okay. No question? Or start from me?
All right.
It's okay, Dr. Forbis.
No problem.
Okay.
If I'm
Okay.
knowledgeable, I will.
Okay. I'm as a lecturer. What must I do so I can give objective evaluation for my student, or avoid the perceptual error, maybe?
All right.
Any suggestion from you? Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Reza. It's a very good question. Particularly, the fair perception that we can develop, in my experience of last 25 years, in the academic as a faculty, back home and in Malaysia also. And what I found is basically we are suggested by the educational psychologists, right, to make it fair. First 2 weeks or 3 weeks, basically, we are not giving any assignment or any evaluation, just simply because this is the period that we are given to get close to the student, to get to know about the student, right? Sometimes we ask some questions, just we give them some very general question and we get the response. Because in our class, usually, there are fast learner and there are slow learner. Right? That is very normal. So our job as an educator is to narrow the gap. To narrow the gap does not mean that we have to pull down the fast learner. Rather, we pull up the slow learner. right? So that is going to be, the gap is going to be narrow. So that is why we are given these first 2-3 weeks just to learn about the student, the capacity, who is fast learner, who is slow learner, and all this to identify. This can be identified through very general question, or maybe sometimes it's a kind of quiz, or we give them some, even that could be even about the general knowledge and how quickly respond, how correctly respond student. Then we realize, because if these are all the students, fine, we know their characteristics, right? Especially for the new students, we have to see all these, and then especially when we group the students, we have to make sure that there are some first learners also in the group, right? In a way that we can get them to, because our job as an educator is we have a trust from the parents, right? So that is why our job is, even our university slogan, you can see, transforming life and enriching future. We are a middle person to transform their life, basically. Parent trust us sent to them here, and if students leaving the university also in the same way, meaning that we do not transform. So transforming in a positive everything. That is why during last almost 2 hours, I'm not saying that I'm doing good, but you can see we try to relate to the divinity, we try to relate to the God, meaning that we are giving them information in a way that they can consider all these things, and they realize, and they are going to have their effort to transform. For example, someone came to us, because I always go down when there is a orientation session and all this, nothing to do with me, but I go down, I see how many obese people, student registered for this semester, and I see how many, all these things I observe personally as a psychology student. I'm also a student. So just to see that what is happening there. Then in my observation, I found that this obese, the number of obese is increasing for all this. So some other people may not realize this, but I go down and I check. So because we wanted to give the right information to them so that they can transform their life, at the end of the day, by the time they graduate, they are fit to anything, right? It is not that the way they come and the way they live. Sometimes some students just come for the class and submit assignment, do the test and exam and all this. They pass, of course, right? In university, we don't simply fail them. But the thing is, whether they really learn the thing, this is our task, right? That is why we learn all these things at the beginning, and we try to be fair to them in terms of giving jobs, giving assignment, giving, so that hopefully we can make the right evaluation to them, right? Unless we know all these things, we give them some workload. At the end of the day, they are not able to perform the things, right? This is what I personally practice usually, to have the fair perception on them.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor, for the insightful answer. We have another question. This is from the participant, Doctor.
All right.
Felicia Salsabila.
Ya, terima
You
kasih
can
Mbak
unmute.
Reza.
Yes.
Selamat pagi, dokter. I'm Lisa. I have a question, and I'm sorry if this has been discussed before because I'm kind of late. So, there are various ways that person can. I know that behavior in the workplace based on people perception. So there are various ways that person can perceive a situation in the work environment that can lead to problems, like such as judgment, like stereotyping or halo effect. because it's happened on me. Like sometimes I judge someone by my stereotype, and I have no idea how to deal with that, because it's like keep on my mind keep on my mind every time I see someone. I judge someone because of my perception, my coworkers, like that, and how to deal with that. So, thank you.
Okay. Felicia Salsabila. Right? So what I realized from the question is sometimes all the biases, the stereotyping, and all this come to our mind and overwhelmingly affecting our decision about our co-workers and our subordinates and all this, right? So that is why I emphasize here, who am I to make all these biases while the God has given me everything? Salsabila, see here, the way our perception has composed by the Almighty, right? I know that we have different people from different belief and different faith here, but at least we have we believe in God, right? So imagine one of my eyes is located in my knees, right? What will happen? So it's going to be upside down, everything, right? Now the Almighty, the Creator has given you see, our eyes, nose, mouth, ears, all this in a beautifully created in one place, one small place, and which is very close to the brain, right? So, and then amazingly, right? So created in a way, in a very beautiful way, so that we can think, we store the knowledges, experiences, and all this. So that is why I always ask myself, who am I making a misperception on other people while I'm given everything, all the accessories, right? That is required. So that's why my answer will be a little bit of God-fearing, right? God-fearing. So I have been given all this, and if I do anything misperception here, and also the consequences in here after, right? That is why with the God consciousness only, I think we probably can make, of course, that is just the main. Other than that, we have to improve our knowledge. We have to get all the required information. We have to get right information from about your partner or your colleague or your subordinates, even your superiors also, right? So unless we have collected all, even when you choose your university here, right? You're in Airlangga, you might have multiple choices. Right? Why you are in Airlangga? You made the right decision, of course, I have to say here, right? You made the right decision. Before that, you have collected all the information, right? Online, offline, from your friends, colleagues, parents, and from the social media network. You have collected all the information. So if you have collected the information in a fair way from the reliable sources, definitely it's going to be, your perception is going to be in a objective way also, right? Similarly, in your life, this decision, in your anything related to your family, in your decision, your education, your future career, your current job, then we have to be, of course, equip ourselves with the knowledge and also with a spiritual. If we are not fit spiritually, we can have a mentor, spiritual mentor, like the way we have mentor. We are mentoring many students here also. I have, other than a student, I have mentee. We apply this system in the university here. So that is why sometimes we need some spiritual guidance, right? So that is the thing only is going to be helpful for us with all the, I believe psychology students are always, you have full of knowledge, awareness, alert, and all this, right? That will help you hopefully in developing a fair perception in your career or in your education pathways. That's the answer from me.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Forbis, for the answer. I think that's the last question we have because we are running out of time. The conclusion of presentation today is it's not about good or bad perception, but how to make objective perception when we evaluate something or we evaluate someone, and how to be positive and be grateful. Once again, thank you, Dr. Forbis, for an amazing presentation. And thank you for our Vice Dean, Bu Nuraini. And thank you for Faculty Ambassador, Bu Pramesti and Bu Valina for arranging this event. And thank you for everyone who was joining today's sharing session. And I like to apologize if there are many mistakes from me as moderator during the session. And just for information, if you are late to join our session, don't worry because you can rewatch the recording from Fakultas Psikologi Universitas Erlangga YouTube page. We hope you learned something today. And for the last agenda, we will take a documentation. So please to activate your video. I will give your time before I take a screenshot. Okay, I will count. Okay, wait. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm Reza. That's all from me. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, we will see you again in another guest lecture by Fakultas Psikologi Universitas Erlangga. For tomorrow, we also have another guest lecture at 9 a.m. The topic is about individual diversity in organizational behavior. Okay, once again, thank you, Dr. Forbis. I hope someday you will visit Surabaya and go to UNER.
Inshallah. Inshallah, we meet someday, inshallah. Because, just before pandemic also, I was presenting a paper in your conference.
Oh, okay.
In Surabaya.
Inshallah.
In one hotel, I forgot. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
To everyone, the Deputy Dean,
You.
as now you mentioned, and also Ibu Pramesti and Riza and all of you. So thank you once again.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I will close this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang.